Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. I hope you had a good weekend. Let me start with some macro thoughts and an excerpt from my weekend piece, which is about the politics and the economy. Margaret Thatcher famously said, "You cannot buck the markets," and what I know is that the $5.1 trillion a day foreign exchange market is one market that cannot be bucked. Mrs. Thatcher, who admittedly needed a war with General Galtieri's Argentina to catalyse 3 election victories, famously said, "You cannot buck the markets." So let's start with the dollar, which is at a 9-month low. The pound has traded a range of more than 24% since Brexit. The euro has exploded 7.5% higher in 2017. Everyone is piling into Europe and the euro dumping the dollar. Have a look at this chart from markets. Dollar bulls face perilous start to second half as payrolls loom. 22nd of May I touched on this and I wrote an article entitled Apocalypse Trump. And I said, if we are headed to an apocalypse Trump, then I'm afraid the dollar has a lot further to fall. Have a look at this from the Leuthold Group, a history of bull markets in one chart. Home thoughts, sunset shot at Terra Nova National Park in Newfoundland. Rather marvellous, I thought. I've been reading Wilfred Thesiger, read his second book, and he really is worth a read. Early memories of desert travel are almost gone, overlaid by later ones of the Abyssinian highlands, for it was there he lived until he was 9. Look at this description about Abyssinia: the golden broom in the garden, iridescent sunbirds among the flowers, the juniper bushes, and red gullies behind the house, Alsace waiting with the ponies, a camp by a waterfall, the dipping flight of green and chestnut bee-eaters, and the crimson flash of a turaco's wings among the trees. These are a few pictures that spring to mind from scores of others. In July 1969, I happened to be in Kenya on the shore of Lake Rudolph when I heard with incredulity from a naked Turkana fisherman that the Wazungu, as he called Europeans, including Americans, had landed on the moon. He had heard the news at a distant mission station. To him, this achievement, being incomprehensible, was without significance. It filled me, however, with a sense of desecration and of deep despair at the deadly technical ingenuity of modern man. Journeying at walking pace under conditions of some hardship, I was perhaps the last explorer in the tradition of the past. I was happiest when I had no communication with the outside world, when I was utterly dependent on my tribal companions. My achievement was to win their confidence. Among my many rewards was, in Abyssinia, to have been the first European to explore the Sultanate of Ausa in Arabia, to reach the oasis of Liwa, and to have found the fabled quicksands of al-Samin. And in so many of my travels, to have been there just in time. Remarkable stuff. Have a look at this YouTube video, The Empty Quarter from 1967. I like this. A cool date de Andres Page. And this Rumbo al Volcan in Antofagasta, Chile. And then finally, the beautiful sunrise this morning was just amazing. Worth waking up at 4:30 a.m. Curly cheeks. Political reflections. My piece over the weekend was about how politics always intrudes into the economy the world over. Over the last 12 months, we have watched a white-knuckle roller coaster ride anywhere you care to cut it. Hong Kong has always been in my heart, Z told reporters moments after arriving on Thursday. He then added, it is absolutely impermissible. Any attempt to endanger China's sovereignty and security, challenge the power of the central government and Hong Kong's basic law, or use Hong Kong to carry out infiltration and sabotage activities against the mainland is an act that crosses a red line, Z said. It's absolutely impermissible. And I concluded by saying Hong Kong is a bird in a cage. China's President Xi Jinping is seen here waiting to meet with Hong Kong's Chief Executive Long Chun-ying at a hotel on his visit to Hong Kong, AFP photo. Moving on, the once sick man of Europe has got its mojo back with the wizardry of the French President Emmanuel Macron. And then have a look at this FT article, decoding the messages of Emmanuel Macron's official portrait. And this is why I call him a geopolitical sorcerer. Macron, of course, announced his arrival on the world stage by handshake wrestling Trump to a standstill, has given Europe its mojo back. The intelligence that prompted the administration's warning to Syria this week was far from conclusive, said a US official familiar with it. It did not come close to saying that a chemical weapons attack was coming, the official said. Now everyone's attention was captured by this particular tweet from Donald Trump. Take a look at it. You can see on the head of the wrestling adversary, they've stuck CNN, I sort of said in my article over the weekend, Trump resides in the White House from where Zeus-like he hurls Twitter thunderbolts. And I was saying over in the US, the rank outsider Donald Trump ranked at a 1% chance at the start of the Republican primaries, overturned the odds. And today he resides in the White House from where Zeus-like he hurls Twitter thunderbolts. Last week, President Trump decided to showboat his insanity again on a public timeline. My use of social media is not presidential, it's modern-day presidential. Make America great again, he said. I heard poorly rated Morning Joe speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore. Then how come low IQ crazy Micah, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me? She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. It's pretty extraordinary stuff. Donald Trump has a dangerous mental illness, say psychiatry experts at the Yale conference. Mental health experts claim the president was paranoid and delusional and said it was their ethical responsibility to warn the American public about the dangers Mr. Trump's psychological state poses to the country. Worse than being just a liar or a narcissist, in addition, he is paranoid, delusional and grandiose thinking, and he proved that to the country the first day he was president. If Donald Trump really believes he had the largest crowd size in history, that's delusional. In February, Duty to Warn, which consists of psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers, signed an open letter warning that his mental state makes it incapable of serving safely as president. The letter warned that the president's tendency to distort reality, to fit his personal myth of greatness, and attack those who challenge him with facts was likely to increase in a position of power. The Guardian says Trump and Obiang are recognizably members of the same species. The US warship has sailed near Triton Island in the second FONOP under Trump, Freedom of Navigation Operation, or FONOP, obviously taking a much tougher stance with China after seemingly giving them a free pass. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement that the US ship had made an unauthorized entry into China's territorial waters. The operation was a serious political and military provocation, said the statement issued late on Sunday. The Dubai ruler and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed have met in Abu Dhabi, according to the National UAE. Interesting piece by Kenneth Rosen, The Devil's Henchmen. The latest of these scourges arrived in June 2014, the Islamic State riding in shiny Toyota Hiluxes with machine guns welded in their beds. The militants overran Mosul as well as Ramadi and Fallujah to the south. Iraqi security forces dropped their weapons and fled, gifting the new arrivals with a bounty of ammunition depots, armoured vehicles and military installations. Close to 1 million civilians in Nineveh province were left under the extremists' rule. Arundhati Roy, in the air in India, now is pure terror. Corbyn's reinvigorated party is now on 45%, 6 points ahead of the Tories, which, if replicated in a general election, would put Corbyn in a strong position to enter Downing Street. Over the weekend, I said Theresa May increasingly looks like a prime minister without a mandate. Brexit kicked it all off, but far from being a political clean break, that vote looks like it was a high water mark for the merry band of Brexiteers. Theresa May increasingly looks like a prime minister without a mandate. Saudi Arabia's economy shrank by 0.5% in the first quarter. International markets. Interesting article in the New Yorker about Zell, who apparently is over the Tribune. On a recent Wednesday afternoon, Zell, the iconoclastic Chicago businessman, breezed into his New York City office on Madison Avenue, fresh from a week of motorcycling through the Tuscan countryside. It was absolutely spectacular, he said. I'll tell you, the one thought that just kept going through my head all week long was I'm 75 years old. I'm riding faster and better than I ever have in my life. He wore his usual outre uniform of pressed black jeans and black t-shirt, and was his typical jovial and provocative self. He was in town ostensibly to promote his new book, Am I Being Too Subtle? A chatty memoir that is in homage both to his parents, Jews who escaped Poland in 1939, and to his own entrepreneurialism, which has helped him to accumulate a fortune estimated by Forbes to be $5 billion. Zell attributes his wealth to a prescription articulated by any number of successful business people, zigging when everyone else is zagging. It's a replicable formula, he says, and he has little patience for people who complain that it was somehow easier in the good old days, or that the moment for such opportunities is past. His earliest successes came from investing in real estate assets that others shunned. My message is anybody can do it, he explained. They've got to be focused, they've got to be driven, they've got to have a tin ear to conventional wisdom, they've got to think outside of the box. He refuses to listen when he's told he can't do something. I spend my whole life listening to people explain me that I don't get it. I look at the Forbes 400 list and I eliminate the people who inherited the money. Everybody else went left when conventional wisdom said go right. How did I do what I did? By not listening to anybody else. German 10-year yields have obviously popped higher. We should see a further pop today. Japan's Prime Minister Abe faces his biggest test since coming to power in 2012 after his party suffers a heavy defeat in Tokyo vote. The Koike has been a thorn in the Prime Minister's side since August, when she manoeuvred around Abe's chosen candidate to win the governorship of Japan's capital. The S&P 500, look at the total return, finishes higher for the 8th consecutive month, up in 15 out of the last 16 months. Charles Villello. Let's go to the currency markets. Euro dollar 114.05, dollar index 95.64, Japanese yen 112.59, Swiss franc 0.9599, the pound 130 the figure, Aussie, let's take a look where that is, 0.7670, India rupee 64.655, South Korean won 1146.49, the Real 330.64, Egyptian pound 18.1530, and the South African rand 1306.75. This is a euro-dollar chart. My target was 114.50, and I think then we're going to go to 117. I think it's difficult for the ECB to slow down that move. Commodity markets, commodity returns through 6 months, again from Charlie. Take a look at these. Gold, last trading when I checked 1238, seems to be trading with a downside tilt. Crude oil, which has had an 8-day rally after a very steep sell-off. This is what always happens. Short covering, $46.30. Still headed, in my view, to $32. Emmanuel Macron was in Mali and posted this photograph, which I liked. This is about assembling a West African counter-terrorism force under the auspices of the French. You can go to prison for saying the wrong thing. You can be disappeared. You can lose your job, your business, she says. Foreigners say how they feel safe in Rwanda. We as Rwandans do not feel safe. Most observers see Kagame's win as a foregone conclusion, cemented in 2015 during a referendum on whether to amend the constitution to allow him more time in office. The Treasury in South Africa has announced a South African Airways bailout to settle 2.3 billion rands worth of debt owed to Standard Chartered Bank. The payment was done in terms of Section 16 of the Public Finance Management Act, read a media statement released by the Government Communications on behalf of the National Treasury on Saturday. And this is something that Moody's flagged up, that increased support for these parastatals was going to be counterproductive for the South Africa's credit. The rand's resilience shows cracks as South Africa faces hurdles. Rand has held up remarkably well this quarter, considering the headwinds of economy and recession, credit ratings reduced to junk, a government mired in allegations of corruption, and a ruling party distracted by a power struggle. The rand has gained 2.7% against the dollar since the end of March, as the country's relatively high yields continue to attract buyers. South African 10-year government bond yields 8.76%, second only to Turkey, among 28 developing nations tracked by Bloomberg indices. That's handed investors a carry trade return of 4.1%, but the rand's predicted return for the next quarter, based on forecasts for the currency plus interest rates, was a negative 2.1% on Thursday, worse than all but 3 emerging market peers. Over the past few weeks, we've seen the rand's runabout performance gradually grind to a halt, and we think it will continue. This underperformance is the result of the cumulative effect of a string of economic and political difficulties that have hit South Africa recently. These setbacks mark a turning point on sentiment around the rand. On Wednesday, foreign investors dumped the most South African bonds since Donald Trump's election as US President in November, sparked an emerging market sell-off. Dollar versus rand, obviously 13.40 is the key level. And if we burst through that, then we move very fast over 14. Egypt's Sisi, friend of Donald Trump and the man who issued the Qatar blockade signal, wisely decided this was not a time for Egypt to fight the foreign exchange markets. And I think he devalued the Egyptian pound by more than half last year. I think this was a good move. The Egyptian pound currently is at 18.153. It's an attractive level. Over in Nigeria, which entered a Yaradua deja vu wormhole, the authorities continue to take the fight to the FX markets. What we know is that the day of reckoning cannot be sidestepped. Put up a photograph of when President Yaradua arrived back from Saudi Arabia. Nigerian all shares up 23.23% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 16.31% year to date. Tanzania laws would allow government to tear up mining and energy deals, the Africa report. The bill on natural wealth and resources reads, where the government has served notice of intention to renegotiate the arrangement or agreement and the other party fails to agree to renegotiate the unconscionable terms, or no agreement is reached, such terms shall cease to have effect and shall be treated as having been expunged. It defines unconscionable terms as anything that is contrary to good conscience and the enforceability of which jeopardizes the interests of the people of Tanzania. My piece, as I said over the weekend, was about the political economy, and I said here in Kenya it is supersized in relation to the size of our economy. I've seen very compelling analysis that this election will in fact see a total spend in the order of $4 billion across the presidential, gubernatorial and all the other elections. That's a very big number for an economy the size of ours. The intrusion of the political economy into the real economy is a very expensive thing. The real economy needs a transparent process, a first round result, and a gracious user. That's the ask. Braj Group have bought a Java house. This is a report in the FT. Acquired the company for an undisclosed sum following a year-long auction. ECP Managing Director described the return made by the Pan-African Group on its investment in Java as good, consistent with what we'd expect. ECP was reported to have sought bids of $100 million for Java House. ECP bought 90% of Java House in May 2012, with Mr. Ashley retaining the remaining 10%. They have grown the company from 13 Nairobi outlets in early 2012 to 60 across Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda. Launched 2 further restaurant brands, frozen yogurt and 360 degrees artisan pizza. We have geographical opportunities, we have different themed opportunities, he said. The Kenyan market is not just about coffee. We've got a comprehensive investment plan and there is a lot of stuff we want to do that is done better and easier with 100% ownership. Mr. Ashley said, we've shown we can move into a town of 100,000 people and make it work. Java validates the middle class experience for many people in Africa. Their hard work and dedication to their education can be rewarded by taking their family to a nice place. The secret of our success has been our people-centered approach. When you go into Java, the staff seem happy and the customers seem connected with the staff, he said. Williamson Tea reported a full-year loss after tax of 261.593 million shillings. Turnover was up marginally, up 0.896%. Loss before tax was 351.944 million. Loss after tax was 261.593 million. Full year earnings per share loss was 13 shillings and 73 cents. They've declared a dividend but not told us how much it is. They say prices have generally been weak through the year, but as very high crops were followed by low crops, prices increased in the final quarter of the year. Cost increased, though, through the year, adding to poor results. With cut crops currently low and therefore less tea available to buyers throughout Kenya, we expect to see good prices for a period of time in the new financial year. There remains uncertainty over trade union disputes currently being presided over by the courts. Have a look at this tweet, end of the week view over the farms. This is Williams and Tea. Conclusions, they have not yet advised around the final dividend. The net asset value is a multiple of the share price, but clearly there's been too much supply and low prices in the tea markets, but that seems to be turning around. Capital Tea, which is a sister company, reported a full year loss after tax of 51.769 million shillings. Full year EPS loss was 6 shillings and 62 cents. Again, same thing applies. Not advised as the full year dividend. Net asset value is a multiple of the share price. Nakumatt has shut down 3 strategically placed branches in Uganda. Village Mall, Acacia Mall and Victoria Mall. I see it. It's very, very difficult to see how they come out of this in the current state. Nairobi all shares up 14.68% year to date, but it's traded low 3 days in a row. NSE 20 is up 13.21% year to date. Once again, thank you for stopping by and wishing you a great week.